that, I'm going to get started with my introductions here. My name is Sarah, and I work at the Temple University Small Business Development Center. For those of you that are new to the SBDC system, we're one of over 1,000 SBDCs across the United States, and there are 16 of them within Pennsylvania. So we are part of a nationally accredited network. And because Pennsylvania is big, there are a couple states that are bigger. We have multiple centers throughout the state. We are here at Temple University, so we cover Philadelphia, Eastern Montgomery, and Lower Bucks County. But since this is a virtual webinar, you are possibly joining us from over by Pittsburgh or Scranton, Westchester, wherever you are. We are more than happy to have you on the call with us today. This is just one of the many webinars we're doing in our manufacturing series. So you might be on as a manufacturing business or someone who creates your own products or services, trying to figure out how to ship or grow your own e-commerce channel. We are happy to have you online with us for another one of our expert guest speakers, Damon Pitsalka, who is going to be talking more about managing and growing that e-commerce channel, which is so relevant to staying in business today. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Damon introduce himself.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Sarah. I'm going to just get started here with the presentation because I actually got a slide in there that talks about me for a second. So what we're going to be talking about today, I am sharing the screen, right, Sarah?
Yep, looks good.
All right. Just wanted to make sure. So everybody's talking about e-commerce that's in business now. How do we sell on e-commerce? And what should we? You know, and really one of the things that we need to understand about e-commerce is it opens your products and services to a global market. You know, decision to add e-commerce sales. Unfortunately, though, it also requires learning and addressing new challenges. But if you prepare correctly, it's something that you can do, and you can implement e-commerce sales efficiently and reduce the cost to get into e-commerce. And today, hopefully, we're going to cover some of the things that business owners, managers, or marketers that aren't familiar with e-commerce should consider as they go through the process of exploring e-commerce or actually starting e-commerce. But, you know, e-commerce is an effective way to increase your sales. You can recognize different revenues that you wouldn't see before because they're online buyers that are going to be there. But really, it's something that almost everyone should consider. I use a broad category when I talk about e-commerce. E-commerce is also enabling current sales to be happening easier and more efficiently for the customer and the company. So that's why when manufacturers talk with me, they go, "Oh, you're talking about e-commerce and Amazon." Well, that's one piece of it, but there's a lot of other things to consider in it as well. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more. And let's get started. So what's my goal today? Hopefully today I'm going to just shed some light on ways you might be able to use e-commerce to grow your sales, or things you should think about as you're considering e-commerce so you don't waste a bunch of money, because it is one thing that you can waste a lot of money getting into because of the things you have to do. But there are ways to drastically reduce the amount of cost into it and still get a lot of the benefits that you want to initially out of the box with e-commerce. So who am I? Raised on a big farm in South Dakota. You'd never think that I would end up in e-commerce. I'm a husband, father, son, brother, family, you know, all that kind of stuff. I went to school for engineering and industrial management. I didn't go to school for e-commerce or finance, but I find myself, and that's what I deal with every day, is e-commerce sales, manufacturing and finance businesses, and helping them figure out e-commerce. So, and that's really what I've been doing for the last 5 years, but I've been doing manufacturing and sales consulting for the last 10 years after my corporate career. So let's start out with a little bit of digital history, because the digital transformation that's happening has really, first of all, it's quite remarkable, but it's been in process for a long time, and it's been a long and winding road, and we're still figuring our way out. But the one thing that we look at in 2021, e-commerce looks to be about a $650 billion global market. and it's going to increase significantly as we move forward. Now, e-commerce is older than you think. It started a long time ago. Actually, in 1969, CompuServe was the first remnants of the beginnings of the internet and e-commerce. And then in 1979, electronic shopping was invented with TVs connected to computers that were used to process transactions. And it's so 1979, was that 50 years ago plus, 50 plus years ago, the first kind of electronic transactions. And then in 1982 was really when the first e-commerce platform started. So again, we're talking almost 40 years ago, where the Boston Computer Exchange had a platform. These were small, kind of things were in between a few people, but it was already starting. The basics were there. So like the volcano that rises from the seafloor, this has been happening for a while, but we're really starting to see the volcano come above the waterline. So what further enabled this was the broadband internet and just an HTML. Because you think about these things, you think about always on internet. When we were in dial-up, it was horrible. You couldn't load pages, but now we got fast internet. And now the internet is even going faster when we look at things like gig connections and 5G. I mean, if you have been on a 5G phone in a nice area where you got great connection, you understand what the true future looks like in speed. And this is going to continue to drive the availability of information to everyone. But really, you think of the click that changed from just dial up, where you had to intentionally go and dial up on the internet with slow download speeds, to the broadband internet where it's always on, to where we're at today. Just the internet speed alone is pretty crazy. And then in 1990, when they invented HTML language, that was really the changing point for us in a lot of ways, because that allowed us then to have main web browsers like we do now. Netscape started in 1994, and you look at Chrome or Internet Explorer in 95, Firefox in 2002, and Chrome in 2008. And now we got Microsoft Edge. These improved the access and made it easy for us to look at this information. Now we don't even, it's an afterthought, right? All this stuff is becoming an afterthought after a few years. Always on internet, we're expecting it. Always web browsers that get us there. We don't even think about it anymore. It's a part of everyday life, like a light switch on the wall. And then you look at the other things that's happened in mainstream email and social media, all that kind of stuff that really started a long time ago. But when you look back again and you go, okay, always on internet and then the browsers that really enabled this. But then when you look at in 1997 is one of the first social media sites was 6 Degrees. I never heard of it. And heck, I'm old. So it's funny how this things. And of course, the MySpace that went in and out. And then you see the other companies, like I mentioned before, CompuServe and AOL, we're all kind of in this online kind of commerce and just starting out and changing so much, but they really were ushering in what we're seeing today. And then you see layered on top of this, search engines. And search engines really changed it, because now we didn't need to know where we were going on the internet. We just needed to know what we were looking for. And that made the internet this huge encyclopedia that came right to our fingertips. And when that happened, we were sitting there at our computers and we were able to get any information that was publicly available very, very quickly. And so we're getting used to this now over the years, and we're talking, these things came around. Google is in 1994. Bing in 2009 is really actually the latest. Yahoo was in 1994. So they've been around now for nearly 20 years. No, 30 years, excuse me. My math is off. So they've been around a long time. But then let's take it one step further. Smartphones stuck this power, all the always on internet, the browsers, the HTML, all this stuff right at our fingertips. And what did that do? That's raising generations of people now that have grown up with always on information. And these came out, and like the first iPhone, I had to look it up. The first iPhone is in 2007. So, you know, what is it now? 14 years that's been around. So if anyone that is, you know, 15, 18 years old now, they had constant online internet, and they on the cell phone, they've just gotten used to this. But anyone that's you know, that's in their 30s now has been used to Google and everything like this, constant internet in the workplace for a long time, or even at home and how they do this. We've gotten so used to being able to find this information that this readily available information has really been forcing companies to be digital, because it's not an option anymore. Our habits to find information have changed. Our buying habits have changed. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But most of your audience, if you're on here today and say, well, I get most of my business word of mouth. Well, that's great, because if you get word of mouth, they still, the first thing they do is they're going to Google your company. They're going to find your website or find your social media, and they're going to go look you up. So it's not just for people that are in e-commerce. It's not just for people that, you know, want to have that social presence. It's for everyone. You really need to understand your digital footprint and what you're doing. They want to get now, because of what's happened and what I went through. People want to see what other people are saying about you. They want to get to know you. They want to figure out what kind of problems you solve, and figure out if what you have will help them solve a problem. So how are we doing, Sarah, for questions?
No questions yet, Damon.
All right. Well, let's get rolling into modern e-commerce. You know, we don't realize this, but modern e-commerce now is 20 plus years old. Amazon and eBay were started in 1995. So they're close to 26 or 26 plus years old, whatever it is, when they started. PayPal, Alibaba, you know, 98 for PayPal, 99 for Alibaba. In 2000, Google AdWords started. So e-commerce is not the new kid on the block. I mean, in the early 2000s, I was using Alibaba to find suppliers in China and other places in Asia, and actually going and visiting suppliers after you find them, and setting up contracts with people in the United States. This stuff's been around for a long time. And what Amazon and eBay and others like them have done is brought it mainstream into the home and the business. And that's really what we can't ignore as a business, trying to understand how we fit in the world of e-commerce and what we should be doing. The other thing that's happened, I said, is the buying habits have changed significantly. People want convenience. The constant online presence, the online internet, having the cell phones, it's all driven this. And then Amazon, them added to this. But the information at our fingertips allows buyers to move much farther through the process before they reach out to purchase or inquire about services. So they want to be able to Google, or on Amazon, they want to be able to search for a product or a service, depending upon what you're doing. And they want to see it. They want to look at it. They want to research. They want to see what other people are saying. So they are going to want to do this, make that decision. And if appropriate, they want to just buy right there when they're ready in their time frame. It could be at 10 o'clock at night, or, you know, whenever. It's not the 9 to 5 business anymore. But you're going to need to have the right online presence, whether you're selling on a platform or not. And these people need to see how you solve the problem or the need that they have at that moment. you need to be able to provide them the information to go in depth and let them really get comfortable with you and the product and make that purchasing decision. But that's all changes as this ability to research and the information we have. Now, modern e-commerce has really expanded a lot because they're moving into more industries. When you look at things like Carvana, where they're in 2019, they're $4 billion in revenue. They are changing the way that we buy cars, and there's 3 or 4 of them now. It's not just Carvana, but they're one of the bigger ones. You look at things like in construction, local based construction with places like Angie's List and Porch, where you can go on and say, hey, I want to have my deck remodeled and get prices from 4 or 5 approved contractors that do this. And then when you look even further in some of these other things like Airbnb and the other things that have happened, this is moving into all different kind of industries. And as we move forward, it's going to continue to develop into new applications. And some of those that we're really excited about when we talk about manufacturing and e-commerce, custom manufacturers are now using configurators and other ways to provide e-commerce solutions where they weren't before. For an example, I was in a chocolatier a few weeks ago, and they are using a configurator. So a client can, on their own websites, they can make a box of chocolates specifically from their selection for that order. So if you want to have they allow customization, if you want to order in bulk, they pull from our standard list of items and put together I forget, it was like a 12 or a 24 box of chocolates, but it gives the customer the option to configure and allows them to deliver that through an e-commerce experience. The other thing that I was just looking at this week on Instagram, I was on Instagram and I got a shopping thing on Instagram from a sheet metal manufacturer that said I could upload my file and they would instantly provide me a quote on that file. So in the background, that configurator that they have is taking that, it's looking at the material thickness, it's looking at the way that it needs to be bent and cut and all that kind of stuff. It's going to give me a quote back. And, another one that if you've ever seen Kurt Anderson talk about manufacturing e-commerce, it's a company that makes ground straps that he's helped over the years. And, basically a ground strap is something that has 2 little circles at the end. You bolt it and it grounds a piece of equipment. They're used all over, but they have a simple configurator on their site that allows you to configure length and the types of ends and all this kind of stuff. And it gives you a drawing, it gives you a quote for in quote and volume. But these kind of things, my point is, these kind of things are propagating into many places that they weren't before. So if you're sitting there listening and going, hey, I don't want to sell on eBay or Amazon because I don't have a standard product, I would say 2 things. One, if you've got a high volume product that you're making for somebody and it's not proprietary, maybe you want to try to sell it on Amazon. The second thing is configurators might allow you to get that same experience on your own website. And we'll talk about some ways to do that as we go down the road. But as we know, COVID accelerated e-commerce. I was talking to somebody yesterday on an interview I did, and really we're thinking it's anywhere from 3 to 5 years of acceleration got jam-packed into about 9 months last year. It caused a massive shift in e-commerce sales. Q2 year over year from 19 to 20 was up about 60%. And overall, it was about 20% up in 2020 over 2019. And what this caused is the demand moved. The demand moved from people like me, like anyone not going into the grocery stores as much and buying, but it moved to other ways of buying online, getting these traditional items that we went into the store, but we're not doing that the same way anymore. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but really it accelerated the development of things that were already in place that made things more convenient for the customers. And some examples of that. Big box retailers like Walmart have been offering ordering online and picking up at the store for a lot of years. You know, Safeway tried it many, many years ago here out on the West Coast, and it's not something that was that popular. But now, because of the shift in the last 2 years, it has gained popularity to an extent that many people didn't fathom until we had to go through this. But these type of buying habits are transitioning into non-traditional buyers. My mother, who's in her 70s, buys from Walmart like this and other grocery stores where she wants to go. She orders online and they come and they put it in the back of her car like that. She likes it now. In last year was safer for her. Now it's a habit of convenience. Here's one that I use a lot when you can, the Home Depot, the curbside pickup. I mean, utilizing their infrastructure of big box stores and doing this has given us more convenient ways to do it. You order online and you can pick up at the store when you're ready to come and get it. You don't have to go and shop for it. These kind of things are driving convenience to us because of these changes. But you need to think about, are there opportunities for you to do this in what you're doing? And then the new level of convenience that we've seen, the explosion of the way things are bought and delivered to the home, you know, from the groceries, the food delivery for every single restaurant almost, with some of these places like Grubhub. And then even these fresh deliveries where you can get your food for the week or food for the day and how they work. Those things are just amazing. And pretty much everything now can be delivered to you. And people are enjoying that. They are getting used to that. Heck, even I am. I don't go and get things that I used to get before because they come to my house now. And we get them set up on recurring deliveries. This is another thing. If you're producing something like that and you can make it so it's automatic, great thing to think about doing. So in a lot of ways, digital sales are not optional anymore. Selling with e-commerce is, for some people, is not optional. You can say word of mouth advertising is how we sell, but someone's going to look at you online. They're going to do it that way. So you at least have to be that far. But really, selling online may be critical to the future of your business, because if I am selling something as simple and as time specific as cupcakes, if I'm not selling online with my cupcakes, the buyers that are used to buying online may not come to my store, but they might find me online because they're looking for cupcakes, and they will find the person that's online selling cupcakes. So this is not just for somebody that's building a durable good that can go like, you know, maybe a toy or a Yeti mug or something like that. It's drives itself into everything. An example of that is I've got a small baker that's in our area, has never put up a storefront, has always done pop-up stores, but they've run everything through Instagram, and they're killing it because they don't have the storefront. They have a commercial bakery now behind it, and they're doing all this stuff, but they don't have no intention of opening a commercial storefront because these pop-ups, these different models are really starting to take over, because they're taking, or in this instance, they take orders throughout the week, and there's different delivery days where they go to their pop-up places and all of their products are delivered, and there's some walk-up business at those places, but it's a much different model and much more controlled for them. So where do we start? Let's first of all, let's stop a little bit. Sarah, do we have any questions?
Nope, we're good. Quiet group here.
Okay. Well, if you're in the group and we get into this, now we're going to start talking about the nuts and bolts of some of the things you need to decide. So if you're in business now and you really want to give e-commerce a try, but you don't know where to start, let's talk about a few things that can get you headed down the right road. The first one is why are you going into e-commerce? You need to understand the main thing that you're probably going to want to be doing with a move into e-commerce is improve customer convenience. Because that's one of the things that e-commerce does. I mean, we can sit there, someone can buy from us at 9 p.m. in the evening before they're ready to go to bed or whatever it is, or early in the morning or anytime throughout the day when they've got a few moments. You want to make it easy to buy 24/7 with your e-commerce efforts. That's the same for B2B too. It's the same for B2B, because don't think there's not buyers that are trying to get a little bit of extra work done at 9 o'clock at night. There are. And if your products can be sold online, you probably want to consider selling them online, or even making it easier just for existing customers to reorder your stuff. So being on e-commerce also makes you easier to find. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but you can hit, with going on some of these different platforms, you can hit potential customers at a large scale very quickly. Because, and we'll look at this, but you are much easier to find on a platform than you would be on your own site. They already have traffic looking for products on their sites. People are already going there to research and buy. You don't have to bring them in and do the things that they need to do on the backside. Amazon, Walmart, Zoro, these other ones have all kinds of customers that they're trying to get in front of you to buy products. The other thing that this does in terms of makes you easier to find, it also adds credibility to your owned websites and your company by being on these platforms, because people understand that if you're going to sell on an Amazon, that you have to be able to comply with the Amazon policies and as their seller policies. And these are very important to the end buyer. They want to be able to do that kind of thing. So they figure if you're selling on Amazon, that you're probably a more trustworthy company, whether it's true or not. That's what they believe. So being on these platforms, even if you're just taking a random standard product and sticking it on the platforms, it will still help you. So now the last thing that I really think about in the why is your global sales territory. I mean, if you have a product that you can make and ship anywhere in the world, you can, with an Amazon and Walmart or your own website, you can just open up your global sales territory. You not only made it easy for people to buy, you've opened up your doors to wherever you want to really to sell it. So it breaks the geographical boundaries of a normal storefront or of a normal business. And, you know, you look at some of the businesses like this. There's a small cooking store that's in the town where I live. They do, when you look at it, you go, how can this store be here? It's in a smaller town. It's a thriving store. You see some customers in it, but it's not like it's got people lined out the door every day. But they have a selection that's second to none. They have the special of the specials. They have the common of the commons. And you ask them how they do it, and they say, well, most of our business is e-commerce. We have a wide following that follows us from all over the world that wants to buy the specialty cooking products and the kitchen products. And we do more out the back than we do through the front door across our register. And I was in a liquor store of all things here close to me too. I was across on the peninsula here in Washington State. And I walked into this liquor store and I thought, how can a 10,000 square foot liquor store in a town of about 25,000 people sustain itself? I mean, super specialty. When you look in something like a tequila, there were probably 50 or 60 versions of tequila there. And some of them, of course, most of them, I had not even heard of. And I asked the owner of the store about it. Similar story, says that we sell more out the back through our e-commerce. He said we're doing 200 to 300 e-commerce orders a day. And that is how our business works. But it allows us to have this storefront and this store here that gives almost I'm not saying a destination type experience for people that come in there. because in that, like I said, in that section of tequila, they had some tequilas that were very unique and affordable that you could have that you rarely would see anywhere else, but they also had very, very high end too. And they're selling them on multiple platforms and doing this. So the ways that you can take your local business and expand it globally with e-commerce is something that you should look at, I believe. And with the SBDC setting, there are people there that can help you to execute these kind of strategies because your store doesn't have to be constrained to local geography anymore. And we'll look at that just a little bit here. So one of the things that people need to choose is, what are we selling? And it might not be so clear. Like I said, if you're manufacturing something, I've got the picture of, tires and wheels. Those have been online for a long, long time. It's pretty simple. Do you have certain size? You look at, but this manufactured piece of metal there, that metal product in the mill, what does a company that makes that kind of stuff, how do they sell? That's where you look at, is there a stand-up product that you can do, or do we have to do something else where we're not going to be on some of the platforms? Or even a highly manufactured product like this it's a company that I actually used to run years ago that makes this whole, if you've been in a grocery store, puts this whole thing together, but they're configurable. There's several different models, blah, blah, blah. Now they're actually implementing a custom configuration system that people will be able to order their stuff online, and B2B, large, like in Kroger or Meijer or any of these big chains, Walmart's doing it with them, that they'll be able to order and configure these things like they want online, rather than having to go through the whole process of submitting a request for a PO and all this kind of stuff that makes it tedious on both sides for their standard products. So you really need to, excuse me, I did my old Ron thing there, but maybe your e-commerce process is a hybrid too. Maybe like in the middle here with this metal part, it's a hybrid. Maybe you just make it easy for people to submit and you get a quote back to them quickly. There's all different kinds of e-commerce that you can consider, but really starting it is where you can make it easier for your customers. And then really, how are you going to execute on that? So what are we selling? Maybe a challenge, but there are ways to figure that out and move forward. So once you've decided why we're doing it and what we're selling, deciding where you're selling might be your next challenge, because you got a lot of different options, and each one of these options have benefits and challenges. But really in e-commerce, one of the things you have to do is understand who you're selling to. How old are they? Where do they go online? Do they buy online? How much? If so, where? All these kind of things. But each one of these platforms or these ways to sell have different demographics that may match really closely to yours, or you may have to try a few to figure out, what works for you. And some of these also help you to cross-pollinate and market between different marketplaces, and also it'll help your own website sales. So don't forego the conclusion that a third-party platform is not right for you. You are limited on third-party platforms because they're basically a listing site. I have a product I'm going to sell. They're best for the pre-configured products or products with size or color options. Those are the things that they're made for. You do have some specialty ones, like a Zorro. That's actually a division of Grainger. It's B2B specific. And then you have some other ones like a Home Depot, which most people don't understand, that Home Depot in the store is one thing. Home Depot online, I can sell products on Home Depot online, but not be in their stores. And they have lots of people that do that. So you'll see Home Depot selling products you will never find in the store online. And as a small producer or importer, or just a company that sells those products, you can list in these specialty marketplaces like that, even though you're not going to be in the big box retailer stores. Walmart, obviously, they do it. But it's really interesting when you look in where you can list your products. And I put Craigslist on there because people think Craigslist and they think, but I actually had a client a few years ago that was selling over $1 million a year on Craigslist. And that was a small part of their overall business, but they used it in a way that was for discounts and closeouts and things like that, where they could heavily discount things in the local market and sell them actually fairly quickly. So you've got a lot of different choices in third-party platforms, and they all charge fee to sell products. That's one of the things we'll talk about. You need to understand what they're going to charge you to sell those products. But the real benefit of these third-party platforms, they have traffic that you will not be able to get. Simply, you do not have the money to generate the traffic that these companies do. I mean, Amazon with 2.4 billion monthly visits, and even the smallest one on there, Costco, at 83 million visits a month. It's when we look at clients that I work with in e-commerce, you're typically at the high end, you're talking in hundreds of thousands of visits a month, but it's more than likely it's in the thousands, like 3,000 or 10,000 if you're lucky. So they have traffic that you just aren't going to be able to get. And that traffic is looking for everything, absolutely everything. So getting on the right platform, they'll have the traffic for you. Those two combinations can really kick your e-commerce efforts off or grow them by going. If you're on a Walmart now or an Etsy now, and you move into one of these bigger ones, yes, they may not be the perfect one, but there may be enough of your demographic on there to really generate a lot more sales simply because of the traffic. The other thing is, third-party platforms will specifically promote your products. They're actively promoting people. They want people on your site. They're on their site to buy things. And when you look at that, and I got an example here, I'm going to show you, they will promote your products more than you can. And just to go show, this is a little demographic. These are just e-commerce channel ad spending over the years. In 2021, we're at 23.9. What is that? I'm sure it's billions. Yeah, billions. And it's going to continue to go up. You can't compete with that as a small company to buy that time of Google ads to get you out there. Here's an example with a client that we know of that, and one of our friends works with, a little company called WORDPRESS. This company in New York City, heart of New York City. If you've ever seen Build-A-Bear, been in a Build-A-Bear and had a kid's birthday party, they produce the voice thing that goes into every single Build-A-Bear, every single one. And they've been doing that for a lot of years, but they've branched out. They've done a lot of other work, and now they've been selling for a while on Amazon. Well, I put in Google, on the other side of the country, plush toy voice recorder. Now look at the first things that came up. It's not their own website. This first Voice Express 20 seconds, that's them, Amazon.com. The first listing on the Google results, Amazon.com. Another one up there in the Google Shopping, Amazon.com. They can promote your products better than you can because they've got these teams of people that are trying to drive people to their sites. And if you build your listings right, with the right keywords and the right, because that's plush toy voice recorder is a pretty unique phrase. Your product's going to show right up when you want them, if that's what your target customer is searching for by being on these platforms. The other thing is they give buyers trust. Let's face it, the way you can buy off of Amazon and return stuff pretty much however you want gives buyers trust. They know, hey, they're going to check out the reviews before they buy you, but they know if they don't like it, they can send it back. And Then when you look at the other stuff that it's done, like the Amazon Prime or the Walmart with their 2-day options of fast shipping, that should really change the game in getting buyers' trust and getting products there quickly. So that's one of the things that you're going to have to overcome if you decide not to use a third-party platform. And it's one of the things that when we're talking to companies in the beginning, we usually say, hey, try to do the third-party platform when you start. Know your customer demographics. You got to try the best platform for you first. It might be Amazon just because of pure number of people, but don't neglect the specialty platforms. This is one thing that you're going to have to run up against on third-party platforms. If I'm producing something that others are producing, you got to understand your competition and know your niche. Make sure you speak to that niche in your listings. I did earlier this year, we were looking for a new sofa. So I did a quick search on Wayfair. This is what came up. 48 different items on one page, 20 manufacturers, over 200 pages of data. You have to understand your competition and how you're going to stand out in something like this. You really need to understand, how do I get brand recognition? Do I have better image? Do I put some unique features? Or am I going to just compete on price? And really, you need to understand that. You need to look at your competitors and figure out what they're doing. That is one of the things you contend with a third-party platform. But you need to know your market advantages and communicate them well. The other thing is the third-party platforms. Amazon FBA has changed the way you can do business with e-commerce. They do it for you, basically. You have a product, I ship them some inventory, they can sell it for you. You don't handle anything other than keeping product there. And they'll list it and they'll do all the kind of things you need to do to sell it. It costs you a little more, but you can get into e-commerce with very few changes to your organization because I'm bulk shipping product to an Amazon FBA location or locations, more likely, and they take care of it. And everything's on the Amazon Prime that way, and it gets 2-day shipping, blah, blah, blah. But, you will pay 30 to 40% to do this. It's more expensive, but it does allow you to get into e-commerce without much trouble. And last but not least, make sure you know your fees. Are you going to be charged credit card fees? Are you responsible for fraud charges? What are the return policies? And now that's something you really need to understand because most of these places now, it's pretty much the buyer returns it, you get to eat it somehow, whatever it is. And then, what is their policy on delivery costs? I mean, can you charge delivery costs? How do you do it? You shipping included? There's all kinds of strategies and things you need to consider in here. And they're not all the same. So you have to look at each one individually. But these third-party platforms, in contrast to the other things we're going to look at, make it easier for you because they bring the traffic. They have all the stuff to list your products. They've got the system to handle orders, all that kind of thing. So third-party platform is one thing. We're going to talk about the standalone and the other ones quick. So Sarah, anyone got any questions for us?
Nope, no questions here, but I do encourage you all to take the opportunity to think of some questions for Damon as we're getting close to the end here.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you even out of left field, if I'm not talking about something that you're interested in, I'm probably going to get to it. But if not, at least put your questions in the chat, and in the office hour after this, we can talk about them too, because there are a lot of things that I obviously can't cover in an hour in here, but that can cost you a lot of money or make you a lot of money if you do this right. And please drop whatever question you want in here. But the next thing we're going to talk about are the standalone platforms. So when people talk about Shopify or BigCommerce or Volusion, some of these, and there's way more than this, that's an all-in-one. Basically, they have the shopping cart part of it that allows you to list and buy, allows someone to list and buy products incorporated into your website. It's all one. And they make it easy. You're going to pay a monthly maintenance fee and you got a Shopify site. It's an independent site. You still need to drive traffic to these. Just like your own website, you're going to need traffic to it. but they simplify it because they've integrated the website and the shopping cart together. So you can get in e-commerce pretty easy, relatively low cost, but you're going to have to figure out how to get your traffic there. So if somebody's got a product where they've got a big blog following or a big customer base that they can market to, and they'd be happy doing that, this might be a good option. It certainly is simple if you're going to do something with your own website. The second thing is, on a WordPress platform, there's all these others: Magento, WooCommerce, WP eCommerce, EG Digital Downloads. You can bolt these onto an existing website in WordPress and add the e-commerce cart on the backside where you can list products and sell products right on your own website. The downfall of some of these are the fact that, like in clothing, for example, selling a pair of shoes that's in multiple sizes and multiple colors is a lot more challenging to do in software than selling a product that's a one size fits all kind of product. So understand what you're doing and some of the complexities you're going to get in, because those simple nuances in your products could drive your decision a lot faster. And some of the platforms like Amazon, they're ready for it. So really look at that. But again, with this, you still need to drive traffic to your site, and that adds complexity to your business. And if you're starting in e-commerce, my advice is always start simple in a third platform if you can. That will simplify the fact of driving traffic, because traffic makes money if it's the right traffic. And this is the one I've talked about over and over, generating traffic, hardest thing to do when you're selling on your own website. But on your own website, you need to understand your customers very well, because you have to do a lot of trust building that you don't need to do on an Amazon, because they need to understand, more about you. You need to speak to their problems, talk to them in languages and in language they will understand, and use the words they will learn, they will use to earn their trust. And you only have text and images to do this. So you have some hurdles to overcome that moving into a third party platform don't. You still have to explain the product and do some things, but this is a consideration when you're selling on your website. Again, you just got to talk about their problems you solve and how you make their lives better with your products or services, but you need to be clear. Explain the process to buy from them, make it easy. It's really, one of the things we miss on a lot of our own websites is not explaining, hey, just hit the button to buy. It's that simple. And part of the trust building is you on your own website, you're going to want to have how-to guides, FAQ pages. And this is good even if you're on an Amazon and including that in listings. We'll talk about that shortly. But right now, we're going to blaze through some of the things about going deeper. I already talked about this. Going into e-commerce needs some different skill requirements and diverse. Your sales and marketing team is much easier. Someone that's used to selling on the road face-to-face has probably not got the skills to do this. And it's usually not going to be found in-house. It's probably not going to be one person when you do it. Not that it has to be expensive, but you're probably going to need to get some help. It's a different way of doing business. It happens in the background and it's all happens silently. It's a data run business. You're talking about clicks, add to carts, conversions, return on ad spend. This is the way that e-commerce business people spend their day, looking at numbers, looking at how it's performing, and then going back and creating, changes to ads and this kind of things. There's a lot of things to learn. It's really the land of text, images, and data. And I just brought this example quick. Go on to Amazon and look at a listing, because you have to sell in that space they allow. You never get to speak to that customer. So you have to sell that product with the words and images on this page, your headline, the reviews, the features, the benefits, the comparative data, and down into the bottom of the e-commerce listing that you have the description, technical details, and then the greatest thing that I think that you can do on Amazon and some of these others is add a product video. Video is a great option. Just remember that. The other thing that you need to do on these platforms and your own reviews, will drive sales. If you have no reviews, it's worth it for you to have a few people you know buy the products, give it an honest review to get things started. And product review management needs to be a part of your process. You need to respond to negative reviews. You need to make sure that you're addressing their concerns and responding to them, explaining how you're addressing so everyone else can see it. Now, when you look at this too, company review management becomes very important, because as you move into e-commerce, your overall company ratings become important. People are going to look you up on Google if you're selling products on your own website or Amazon, and they hit you through Google Shopping. They can let reviews. They can go on Google and leave reviews. They can go on Glassdoor and leave reviews, or Yelp or Facebook. All of these places become important to understand how you look. And you say, well, why does Glassdoor matter? Well, it may not matter with a e-commerce customer, but it may. It certainly will matter with employees. Yelp, Facebook, Google, those are definitely ones that your e-commerce people. But the e-commerce is the review management for it is key. One of the keys. Social is also creating community awareness and third-party endorsements that you can get from social media. They want to learn more about you. They want to understand the causes you support. They want to understand about the company beyond the products and services. And this is where social media can help you out a lot. If you're, like, again, the cupcake company that's selling cupcakes, but you're out doing things in the community, you're out giving, doing the right philanthropic work or participating with other groups. I mean, that's important to your customers. And those are the kind of things that they're going to want to see as you move into this digitally enabled e-commerce world. Last but not least is Amazon and others have set the bar very high in customer service. On-time delivery, returning anything for any reason. But you need to build your processes around it, and it needs to be at the heart of everything. Just understanding that we have to pretty much, if we can, meet the Amazon requirements or the Amazon standard. And when we're doing this, and that means you can't let an email go for 48, 72 hours kind of thing. It needs to be answered, and your restocking, reorder policies, all that. And even to the point that your customer service people that are on the phone need to be empowered at the level that they need to be so they can solve the customer's problems. Customers that are doing e-commerce business now do not want to be on the phone going and hearing, well, I have to check with my supervisor to find out and I'll get back to you. I mean, they want that response on that call. And you need to empower them to be able to do that and teach those customer service people how to do that. Again, this is a data-driven business. This is Amazon's pretty good at really showing what's happening with your business online, and metrics aren't optional. And you will soon learn what data science is when you're in that, because it's the only way you can really see if they're going well or not. Are you getting reviews? Are you getting sales? There's a Google ads campaign. You're looking at those. You're going to want to get dashboards going. These are some of the things that we do for companies where you're looking at, okay, what were our sales and our gross margins, and how did our customer service do? How did our AdWords perform? How did our warehouse do? Again, because we're concerned about fulfillment times and everything like that. But these sound performance measurements keeps track of your e-commerce process. The good thing about the e-commerce is it will help you in other ways. It will help you in other ways that you may not understand, that your business, like I said, and customer service and some of these other things that might help you actually benefit all of your customers if you're doing traditional business and e-commerce business. And it really can help the overall business. So if you're going to take the leap into e-commerce, I implore you, hope that you will take the time to really understand how you're going to do it, because it does take time and money. And, you know, we have limited resources, and we should really try to understand this before you do it. It is something that you can waste a lot of money and be very frustrated after 6 months, after a year, if you don't do it right. And it's not tremendously difficult, but I would highly encourage you to do it. At the very least, research it a lot and understand why you're doing it and what you're going to be doing. So thank you. And if anyone has additional questions, they can talk to me. If you hit this QR code with your phone, you got my contact information. I will be in the office hour after this. And Sarah, I clicked the Q&A thing, and I probably showed it up on the screen because I did. I don't know if we're doing that on Zoom, but I want to make sure that people, if you got questions, we can talk about them now, or we can talk about them in the office hour after.
Thank you so much, Damon. And I do have one question here in the Q&A. Before I get to that, really quickly, I just want to draw everyone's attention to the chat. I did put 2 links in the chat there for everyone. The first is a link to our survey. So I know some of you have been on our sessions before, but for those of you that haven't, we do offer these at no cost to you as a small business owner. The only thing we ask is you let us know how we did. That's what allows us to continue to provide these webinars through our funding. It's a 4-question survey. Takes 30 seconds. Please let us know.
I just wanted to emphasize that the SBDC needs your input on these surveys. Take the time to do it. They work their butts off in the background trying to get people and do these good seminars, and the surveys do help them. So please take the time to do it, and also reach out to them for this kind of stuff. They have a phenomenal resources that can help you. Don't be afraid. If you're not in the area where Sarah can help you, and you're listening from outside the area, check out your SBDC. They will be there. We work with them all over the country, and they're very good.
Thank you for that, Damon. I appreciate that. And the other thing I was going to mention was we have those open office hours with Damon. If you want to learn more about him and his business, or you had specific questions for him and his area of expertise with maybe what the next steps for e-commerce look like for you, please utilize that link. It's a registration link that will bring you into our office hours that start at 1 p.m. And that's set up as a Zoom meeting. So you can unmute yourself. You can turn your video on if you want. You by no means have to, but you can ask any questions in a relaxed format and get some great advice. So before we close out here, I know we only have about a minute left. I want to make sure we answer Sydney's question. So she did put one in the Q&A, which I appreciate. I think this is in reference to Damon, maybe 2 slides ago, before you got to your end slide, you were talking about getting started with figuring out what e-commerce is right for you. And she said, do you have any suggestions for places to start your research?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually on Amazon and Walmart and other places, if you've got a product, look there. They've got a ton of resources on there for people that want to sell on those platforms, and start there. They're also, that's really, if you're going to be selling on a platform, one of the places. But go ahead and reach out to me specifically if you're not thinking about starting on a platform, because it's a little more difficult. But Shopify is another one to take a look at. They've got a lot of good blog articles on there, and that if you need to set up your own website. But Amazon and Walmart, there's a ton of, just Google it. You'll find a lot of stuff to start with.
Yeah, I think Amazon has something called Amazon Small Business Academy.
Yep.
And they have a ton of webinars and resource articles.
Yep.
So definitely a good place to start looking into that research. Thanks, Damon.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
All right. So I think we're right at 1 o'clock here. So I'm going to close us out. I just want to thank everyone once again for being on the call. Thank you, Damon. And hopefully we see some of you with us on our Zoom meeting in a little bit.
All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.